What if I told you that a tiny coin you might have overlooked in your pocket change, a simple copper-colored piece of metal minted decades ago, could hold a secret that transforms it from being worth just 1 cent to a staggering $408 million, making it one of the most extraordinary and talked about coins in numismatic history? Welcome to this incredible journey where we explore the 1970 USA 1 cent coin, a coin minted in Denver at a time when the world was going through cultural revolutions, economic shifts, and the United States Mint was working tirelessly to produce billions of coins for circulation. Yet out of the countless coins struck that year, a handful, perhaps only a few known to exist, emerged with flaws, quirks, and minting errors that elevated their status from everyday pocket change to legendary treasures, and the stories surrounding these coins continue to captivate collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike, because in the world of rare coins, it is not just about metal or face value, but about history, rarity, condition, and those mysterious mistakes that turn ordinary objects into priceless artifacts, and the 1970 penny embodies this perfectly, with dramatic errors like doubled dies where lettering and dates appear doubled as though the die slipped during striking, off-center strikes where the coin's design shifts awkwardly leaving blank spaces on the surface, or even transitional errors where the wrong planchets, blanks prepared for other coins, accidentally ended up being struck with a penny design, and such anomalies make collectors salivate because they are rare, accidental, and impossible to intentionally reproduce, meaning each one becomes a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. Imagine stumbling upon a 1970 penny with the date doubled in bold, clearly visible even without magnification. The kind of error that gets highlighted in auction catalogs and draws bidding wars from collectors across the globe. These mistakes are not just small quirks, they are windows into the minting process, evidence of human error and machine imperfection at a time when the mint was transitioning to more modern production methods, and in the world of numismatics, these imperfections are perfection, because they tell a story, they connect us to a moment in time when a machine misaligned, when a die press slightly askew, or when an inspector's eye missed a flaw, allowing a coin to slip into circulation destined to be rediscovered years or even decades later by a sharp-eyed collector, and the 1970 penny has become synonymous with this type of legendary rarity. Stories abound of collectors finding these coins in change jars, in old rolls of pennies, or tucked away in collections where no one realized their worth, and when such coins surface, the frenzy begins, with collectors rushing to acquire them, prices skyrocketing at auctions, and the legend of the 1970 penny growing larger, its face value frozen at 1 cent yet its collectible value soaring into the hundreds of millions thanks to rarity, demand, and historical significance, and beyond the errors lies the mystique of its time. 1970 was an era of transformation in America. The coin itself carried the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a symbol of unity and freedom, on one side, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. A design that reminded people of resilience and democracy. But within this ordinary design lay the potential for extraordinary fortune, because when flaws crept into the minting process, the coin transformed into a rare artifact, and this transformation is what makes the 1970 penny worth not just money but fascination. It carries with it whispers of chance, destiny, and the thrill of discovery. Collectors know that the journey of finding one is as thrilling as the value itself. It is not just about owning a piece of metal, but about holding a piece of history that slipped through the cracks, defied the system, and emerged as a priceless gem. Think about it, millions of 1970 pennies were minted, yet only a fraction hold the errors that collectors crave, and among those, only a handful remain in pristine, uncirculated condition, graded by professionals as mint state or even proof-like, and those top-condition coins with dramatic errors are the ones that command astronomical sums, because in numismatics, condition is king, and rarity is queen, and together they create legends. It is no wonder then that the 1970 penny has achieved mythical status, with whispers that the most flawless error specimens are valued at an unbelievable $408 million, a number that sounds impossible until you realize how demand, rarity, and historical intrigue can inflate value beyond reason. And this is not just speculation. The world of coin collecting has seen record-breaking sales before. Coins once thought worthless fetching millions at auction, and the 1970 penny fits perfectly into this pattern, standing as a beacon for collectors and dreamers alike, reminding us that fortune can be hidden in plain sight, tucked in an old piggy bank, sitting forgotten in a drawer, or passed through countless hands until finally recognized for what it truly is, and that recognition is what elevates it from a penny to a priceless artifact. And the deeper we look, the more fascinating details emerge, because in 1970, the Denver Mint was under pressure to strike vast numbers of coins quickly, and speed sometimes led to mistakes. The dies used to stamp designs wore down, shifted slightly, or doubled their impressions, planchets were misfed, collars misaligned, yet instead of being discarded, some slipped through the cracks, entering circulation as hidden treasures waiting decades to be uncovered, and each discovery becomes a story, each auction a spectacle, each coin a legend in its own right, fueling a market that thrives on rarity and imperfection. And this is what makes numismatics so endlessly fascinating. Because the coins we use without thought carry with them the chance of greatness, and the 1970 penny represents that chance in its most dramatic form. Collectors spend lifetimes searching for coins like this, guided by knowledge, patience, and hope, and the stories of lucky finds inspire new generations to pick up magnifying glasses, sort through rolls of pennies, and dream of unearthing their own multimillion-dollar treasure. And if we pause for a moment to think about it, this entire phenomenon reminds us that value is not always inherent in the material, but in the story, the history, and the rarity that surrounds it, because copper and zinc alone could never justify $408 million, but history, error, and human fascination can, and that is the real magic of the 1970 penny, that a tiny, ordinary object can contain within it a fortune, a mystery, and a legend that continues to grow with every telling. So whether you are a seasoned collector or just someone curious about the world of rare coins, the 1970 penny stands as a testament to the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary, the rare jewel hiding among the common, and it shows us why coin collecting remains one of the most thrilling pursuits, because at its heart it is a hunt for history, a treasure quest where the reward is not only monetary but also the thrill of discovery. And as you dive deeper into this world, remember that the stories of coins like the 1970 penny are not just about wealth, they are about wonder, chance, and the thrill of finding meaning in the smallest of things. So keep your eyes open, keep searching, and maybe one day you too could hold a fortune in your hands without even realizing it. And if this journey into the world of the 1970 penny has fascinated you, inspired you, or sparked your curiosity about the treasures that might be hidden in plain sight, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible stories of coins, history, and the priceless treasures that continue to amaze the world. Next, 1981 1-cent coin. What if a simple everyday coin that most people would overlook in their pockets, a small copper-colored 1-cent piece from 1981, suddenly became one of the most talked about treasures in numismatic history because it carried a staggering rumored face value of $24 million. Would you believe it? Would you search your drawers and jars for that 1-cent 1981 USA coin that could change your entire life? And would you want to know why such a humble coin has captivated collectors, historians, and treasure hunters around the world? Because the truth is that this coin is not just a coin. It is a piece of American history forged in the early 1980s at a time when the United States Mint was transitioning materials, refining dyes, and producing billions of cents, yet among those billions a very small number stood out, unique in their qualities, rare in their mistakes, and even more rare in their survival. And when the whispers began that one such coin could command the attention of collectors to the tune of $24 million, the legend was born. So imagine the frenzy that follows when people learn that this coin, ordinary in appearance, could be extraordinary in value, and the story of how it became so valuable is as layered as the copper and zinc it is made from, because 1981 marked the very end of the era of nearly pure copper pennies. Right before the mint switched permanently in 1982 to copper-plated zinc cents, which means that the 1981 1-cent coin holds the weight of tradition, history, and transition all in one tiny piece of metal. Collectors know this, historians know this, and investors know this, and when such a coin survives in pristine condition, free of blemishes, struck with razor-sharp detail, it can easily soar in value, but add to that the rumors of misstrikes, double dies, and experimental planchets accidentally released. And suddenly you have a recipe for mythic value. Imagine a coin struck off-center just enough to reveal the minting error but still crisp enough to be graded, or a coin that shows doubling on the date, or the word liberty, errors that fascinate experts and skyrocket auction results. And now imagine that only a handful exist in such remarkable form, fueling bidding wars among wealthy collectors who see not just a coin, but an irreplaceable artifact, driving the price into the millions, and soon into the tens of millions. And with that, the story of the 1981 1-cent coin with a face value of $24 million cements itself into modern folklore, inspiring everyday people to search through their pocket change, through old jars of coins kept by grandparents, through rolls bought at banks, all with the hope that lightning might strike for them. And as more collectors and dreamers talk about this coin, its fame grows, its legend spreads, social media amplifies the tale, videos are made, blogs are written. And every time one of these rare cents appears at auction, headlines remind us that this tiny coin is worth more than most houses, cars, or even entire estates, and people begin to wonder what else might be hiding in plain sight. Because coins are more than money, they are time capsules, and the 1981 cent represents a bridge between eras, a last breath of old copper in a new modern age, and that uniqueness is what makes it priceless to some. But beyond that, it is also a lesson in how rarity, condition, and demand collide to create staggering values. It shows us how something minted by the millions can still become a one-in-a-million find, and it reminds us that the treasures of history are not always golden crowns or ancient jewels. Sometimes they are copper pennies carried in the pockets of ordinary people. And when you think about the possibility of the 1981 penny being worth $24 million, you also think about the forces that drive its demand, because collectors value nostalgia, history, and scarcity, and they are willing to pay astronomical prices for the opportunity to own a coin that symbolizes more than just money. It symbolizes a chapter in American heritage, a turning point in the mint's practices, and a rare mistake that slipped through unnoticed only to become a treasure decades later. And every detail adds to the excitement: the mint marks, the subtle variations in strike, the thickness of the planchet, the sheen of the finish, the microscopic doubling on letters or numbers. All of these small details can transform a common coin into a multi-million-dollar rarity, and that is why so many stories emerge of collectors finding these treasures unexpectedly, sparking hope for others, because every coin in every jar could be the one. And the legend grows even stronger when auction houses report extraordinary sales, where a simple cent becomes the centerpiece of bidding wars between investors who see it not only as a historical relic but also as a hedge of value. Because rare coins continue to rise in worth as years pass, making them one of the most fascinating collectibles in the world. And now the 1981 cent stands alongside the greats, mentioned with awe whenever discussions about million-dollar coins arise, not only because of its financial value but because of its cultural power, reminding us that greatness can come from the smallest places. And while most people ignore pennies, thinking them worthless, those who understand the hidden value know that sometimes those pennies carry more weight than gold, and that understanding changes the way people look at their change forever, leading many to begin collecting, researching, learning about minting history, and developing an appreciation for numismatics as both a hobby and an investment. And as this awareness spreads, the tale of the 1981 penny continues to trend, to inspire, to spark conversations across platforms, in classrooms, in collectors' conventions, and in living rooms where families dump their piggy banks in search of hidden fortune. And so the story keeps alive: the thrill of discovery, the hope of wealth, and the fascination with history, all rolled into a tiny copper coin minted in 1981. And that is why the legend will endure, why new generations will keep searching, and why its value will continue to grow with time. So if you are captivated by this story and want to learn more about incredible coins worth life-changing sums, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us as we uncover more unbelievable treasures that could be waiting for you. Next, 1991 1-cent coin, Today, on this exciting deep dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, a journey into how an ordinary piece of pocket change, the 1991 United States 1-cent coin, could transform into a treasure worth millions of dollars. With certain examples of this penny valued as high as $6 million because of their unique errors and striking mistakes that make them rarities beyond imagination. And today we are going to unpack not only the historical background of the 1991 penny, but also the circumstances of its minting, the types of errors that collectors hunt for, the reasons why these flaws elevate its worth into the stratosphere, and the fascinating possibilities that lie in the field of numismatics where something so small can hold such immense financial and historical weight. So let's start from the beginning and picture yourself in 1991, a year when the Lincoln cent had already been circulating for decades, with the obverse design by Victor David Brenner showing the timeless portrait of Abraham Lincoln, and the reverse still carrying the Lincoln Memorial design, a style that had been used since 1959 to commemorate Lincoln's 150th birthday, and at the time nobody could have imagined that a few misstruck examples of this simple copper-plated zinc coin could one day be valued in the millions. Yet the truth is in the details, because coin collecting and numismatics thrive on details, and the tiniest imperfection can turn something ordinary into something legendary. And when it comes to the 1991 penny, the story of its $6 million price tag is tied to errors that occurred during its production at the United States Mint. Because coin errors are not random accidents that hold no value, they are fascinating anomalies that reflect the mechanics of the minting process, the pressures of mass production, and the quirks of machinery. And these errors, when rare enough, become coveted treasures for collectors. So what kind of mistakes could make a penny so valuable? Well, let's break down the possibilities and the evidence that has been studied over time. First, we have double dies, which are among the most famous and desirable errors, occurring when the coin die itself receives a doubled image during the hubbing process. And for a 1991 cent, a doubled die on Lincoln's portrait, his eye, or the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," could create a bold, dramatic visual effect that instantly sets the coin apart. Such a striking error makes a coin one of a kind, and when discovered in pristine, uncirculated condition, could be appraised at astronomical values. Then there are off-center strikes, which happen when the blank planchet is not properly aligned between the dies and the strike lands partially off the coin, leaving a crescent-shaped blank space and a distorted design. With rare cases where enough of Lincoln's face and the date remain visible, these off-center cents become extremely desirable, especially when they are dramatically misaligned, and one can imagine a 1991 cent with a massive off-center strike combined with full readability of the date being worth a fortune. Another category is broad strikes, which occur when the retaining collar that keeps the coin in place during striking malfunctions, causing the design to spread outward beyond the coin's usual border. And when such broad-struck errors are dramatic, the uniqueness skyrockets the coin's appeal. Let's not forget about die cracks and die breaks, natural byproducts of overworked dies that leave raised lines or cuts on the finished coins. And in the 1991 series, if 1 cent displayed an enormous die break across Lincoln's head or the Lincoln Memorial, creating a bold disfigurement, it would instantly capture the imagination of collectors. In fact, cuts, where a portion of the die breaks away and leaves a large unstruck area on the coin, are especially sought after because no two are exactly the same. Then we have wrong planchet errors, perhaps one of the most exciting possibilities, where a penny might be struck on a planchet intended for another denomination like a dime or a foreign coin, and in 1991, if a cent was accidentally struck on a copper alloy leftover from the pre-1982 era, instead of the normal copper-plated zinc composition, that variation could create a rarity commanding millions, because collectors crave transitional errors. Similarly, a coin struck on a foreign planchet intended for international circulation would make it an exotic treasure, and the allure of rarity feeds the frenzy that drives values to numbers like 6 million. Now, when we consider that the Mint struck billions of 1-cent coins in 1991 across its facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, the odds of a spectacular error slipping through are very small. But that is precisely what makes them so valuable. Rarity combined with historical context creates the perfect storm, and to add to this intrigue is the condition of the coin itself. Because while ordinary circulated 1991 pennies are virtually worthless beyond face value, an era coin found in mint state condition, bright red with no wear, can multiply its worth exponentially, and collectors pay huge premiums for rarity and preservation combined. So when a unique 1991 era penny shows up in the marketplace, the bidding wars can be fierce, driving values up into the millions, and beyond the specific errors there is the broader cultural and psychological element that makes the idea of a $6 million penny resonate so strongly, because coins are not just money, they are pieces of history, tangible artifacts that connect us to the era of their creation, and the Lincoln cent has long been a symbol of American heritage, so when an ordinary cent becomes extraordinary, people see it as a magical transformation. A symbol of hidden treasure in everyday life, and that is why stories of valuable coins continue to fascinate people, inspiring treasure hunts in piggy banks, coin jars, and pocket change across the country. Now let's take a deeper look at how the minting process itself sets the stage for these possibilities, because understanding how coins are made helps us appreciate how errors occur. In the minting process, blank planchets are fed into presses where they are struck by dies under immense pressure. And everything has to line up perfectly, but sometimes dies clash without a planchet between them, leaving imprints on each other that then transfer onto coins, creating clash marks that collectors find alluring. And in 1991, a cent with a dramatic clash could be a star of numismatics, or consider doubled strikes, where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, leading to overlapping images, a rarity that elevates value sky high. All of these variations show how fragile the perfection of minting is, and every imperfection is a chance for discovery. Some 1991 cents might even reveal repunched mint marks, where the D of Denver or a P of Philadelphia was stamped more than once by hand in earlier years, though by 1991 mint marks were machine applied. Transitional cases could still intrigue collectors if anomalies are detected, and every little quirk adds another layer of excitement when a coin captures multiple errors, such as an off-center strike combined with a double die or struck on the wrong planchet. It becomes a true once-in-a-lifetime find, and that is the level of uniqueness that can propel a coin into the realm of $6 million. And let's not underestimate the role of provenance, because if a coin has a well-documented history, discovered by a known collector or featured in a major auction, its prestige and value grow even more. Imagine a 1991 cent with an error so spectacular that it makes headlines, gets written about in numismatic journals, and becomes a showpiece in exhibitions. Its value would soar, and this is why collectors never stop searching, because the dream of finding such a coin is alive and real. In the end, what makes the 1991 1-cent coin worth $6 million is not just its physical flaws, but the story it tells, the rarity it embodies, and the passion it ignites. And this passion has turned numismatics into a world where legends are born out of tiny discs of metal, and every time you hold a penny from 1991, you might be holding a piece of history that is far more than what it seems. So keep your eyes open, check your coins carefully, study the minting process, and understand that treasure may be hiding in the most ordinary of places, because 1 cent could change everything. Thank you for watching this deep exploration into the value and mystery of the 1991 penny. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join us again for more incredible stories from history, collecting, and the amazing world of money. Next, 2000 Lincoln penny. Today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating discoveries in the world of coin collecting, a story that combines history, rarity, minting technology, and the sheer unpredictability of human error. And by the end of this journey you will understand why the 2000 1-cent coin, a penny that seems ordinary at first glance, has been reported to carry a value of up to $3.18 million because of its errors and mistakes that turned it into one of the most desirable treasures in American numismatic history. So sit back, enjoy, and let's explore the full story of how a coin worth 1 cent could become a millionaire's dream, and why collectors and enthusiasts around the world can't stop talking about this remarkable piece of metal, because sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest surprises. The year 2000 was an exciting time in American history. the dawn of a new millennium filled with technological change and cultural shifts. And even in the world of coins, something extraordinary happened. The Denver Mint produced millions of Lincoln cents in 2000, struck primarily on zinc planchets with a thin copper plating as had been the case since 1982. But in the chaos of mass production, errors are bound to slip through, and when those errors combine with rarity, condition, and desirability, a normal coin suddenly transforms into a jackpot for collectors. And that is exactly what happened with certain 2000 1-cent coins that display a range of minting anomalies so unusual that they push their value from a face value of a penny to millions of dollars. One of the most talked about categories of errors in the 2000 penny comes from double die errors, where the design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. And some examples show strong doubling in areas such as the motto, "In God We Trust," the date, 2000, or even Lincoln's profile itself. And when such doubling is bold and unmistakable, collectors are willing to pay extraordinary premiums for it because it represents a visible mistake that shouldn't exist in a system designed for perfection. And yet there it is, a flaw frozen in copper-plated zinc that sparks excitement every time it is found. But doubling is not the only reason this coin has reached legendary status, because other mistakes involve off-center strikes, where the coin's design is not properly centered on the planchet, leaving blank areas of metal or partial features that make each example unique. And in the case of the 2000 off-center strikes that are significant while still showing the date and mint mark are incredibly valuable, especially when they combine with high grades of preservation, making them museum quality rarities that fuel bidding wars at auctions. Then there are the broad strikes and clipped planchets, where a coin was struck either without the collar in place, causing the design to expand unnaturally, or where a piece of the planchet was missing before striking, leaving curved clips that mark the coin forever. And collectors adore these unusual shapes because they break the monotonous uniformity of coins and stand as physical evidence of the unpredictability of minting machinery. Even more intriguing are transitional or wrong planchet errors, where a coin may have been struck on a planchet meant for another denomination, and though rare, reports suggest that a few 2000 pennies were struck on dime planchets, creating thin, silvery cents with distorted designs, and these kinds of pieces almost always end up commanding astronomical values because of how bizarre and scarce they are. And if one combines such a mistake with the specific Denver minting year of 2000, the result is a true once-in-a-lifetime find that collectors cannot resist. Another fascinating aspect of the 2000 penny comes from the condition factor, because while most pennies are circulated heavily and lose their luster, some examples of error coins have been discovered in pristine, uncirculated states, and when a rare error coin is also graded by professional services as MS65, MS67, or higher, the price skyrockets. Because condition amplifies rarity, and rarity amplifies desirability, creating a feedback loop of escalating value that can push an already rare coin into multimillion-dollar territory. And this is why the finest known specimens of the 2000 with dramatic errors can reach up to $3.18 million in value, a figure that seems unbelievable until one understands how the numismatic market operates at the highest levels of collecting. Now let's not forget about die cracks, cuds, and other minor errors that add personality to the 2000 cent, because collectors also appreciate coins with breaks in the die that leave raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coin's surface. And while many of these may seem minor, certain dramatic examples where large sections of the design are affected become extremely valuable. And when paired with the Denver Mint mark in the year 2000, they stand out as collectible gems that tell the story of imperfection in industrial processes, reminding us that even the U.S. Mint is not immune to mistakes. Beyond physical errors, the mythology around this coin also contributes to its allure. Because whenever stories spread about a penny selling for millions, curiosity explodes among the public, leading treasure hunters to dig through jars, drawers, and rolls of coins in hopes of finding the next million-dollar mistake, and this frenzy keeps demand high and prices climbing. Because the idea that an ordinary penny in your pocket could actually be worth a fortune is irresistible, and the 2000 has become a symbol of that dream, a coin that embodies both the randomness of luck and the rewards of careful observation. The Denver Mint itself adds another layer of intrigue, because coins from Denver have long been known for certain striking quirks, and collectors pay close attention to them, and when rare errors emerge from Denver minted coins, they often achieve higher values because of the recognition of this trend, making the 2000D especially important in the grand scheme of error coin collecting. Imagine holding one of these in your hand, a coin that passed through machines, escaped quality control, entered circulation, or stayed hidden away, and today could buy you a mansion, luxury cars, or a lifetime of financial security, all because of a mistake. And that is the magic of numismatics, where history, technology, and chance collide in spectacular fashion. And while some might question how a small coin could possibly be worth $3.18 million, the truth lies in the psychology of collecting, because value is not just about metal content, but about rarity, story, and demand, and the 2000D penny with dramatic errors has all three, making it a perfect storm of collectability, a coin that is not just an object, but a story, a conversation piece, and an investment all in one. So as we wrap up this incredible journey through the tale of the 2000D 1-cent coin worth millions, remember that sometimes greatness hides in the smallest places, sometimes mistakes lead to treasures, and sometimes history leaves behind surprises for those curious enough to look closely. And if you enjoyed learning about this extraordinary penny, and the errors that make it so valuable, make sure to like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories from the world of rare coins, and join us again as we uncover the hidden riches that might be waiting in your very own pocket change. Next, 1995D 1-cent coin, we are going to explore the mystery, the errors, the mistakes, and the possibilities that surround the 1995D 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors, investors, and historians alike with its rumored value of $19 million, a staggering amount for something that most people would overlook and toss into a jar of spare change without a second thought. Yet, as we will uncover throughout this journey, it is exactly those overlooked details, those tiny flaws, those minting mistakes that elevate a coin from pocket change to a priceless artifact of history, and the story of the 1995D penny is one of drama, intrigue, accidents, and discoveries that make it a cornerstone in the fascinating world of numismatics. So welcome and thank you for joining, because you are about to be taken on a ride through the mints, through the errors, through the discoveries, and through the remarkable value that lies in the unexpected corners of American coinage. And let's start by understanding what makes this particular coin stand out in the first place, because in 1995, the Denver Mint produced billions of pennies, and the D Mint mark was supposed to signify nothing more than a standard run of copper-plated zinc cents introduced after 1982, when the composition changed from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin layer of copper on the outside. Yet within that massive production run, a number of errors began to slip through, some visible to the naked eye, others only detectable under magnification, and these mistakes, instead of making the coins worthless or defective, ended up making them priceless, because collectors in the coin market value rarity above all, and an error coin is by definition rare, since it represents something that should not exist, a mistake that slipped through the careful controls of the mint. And with the 1995D penny, multiple layers of errors have been documented and theorized, ranging from doubling on the obverse where the word Liberty, or the date itself, shows signs of being struck more than once, to die cracks that create raised lines across Lincoln's portrait, to off-center strikes where the design is not properly aligned with the planchet, leaving part of the coin blank and the other part distorted. And these are only the beginning of the list of possible mistakes that turn this coin into a marvel, because some examples also exhibit filled mint marks, where debris or grease in the die cavity caused the D mint mark to appear weak or completely missing, and collectors prize these because they signal a true mechanical anomaly. And then there are broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the retaining collar, causing the planchet to expand outward into a warped, disc-like shape. And if that weren't enough, other known errors include clipped planchets where a portion of the coin is missing due to improper cutting of the blank metal discs, and even transitional errors where the wrong metal composition may have been accidentally used, leaving some 1995D pennies struck on copper planchets instead of zinc, creating one of the most elusive and sought-after variants of the entire modern Lincoln cent series. And it is these endless combinations of errors and anomalies that spark bidding wars among collectors, driving values into the millions when the right specimen surfaces. Because when you combine rarity with a backstory of minting mistakes, you end up with a treasure that transcends its face value, becoming a historical artifact and a financial marvel. And the reason a 1995 D penny can command as much as $19 million is not because every coin from that year is special, but because among the billions minted, a handful of extraordinary pieces slip through with unique characteristics. And when scarcity meets demand in the collecting world, prices skyrocket to unimaginable levels. And think about how many ordinary pennies pass through our hands every day, yet tucked away in circulation or hidden in a forgotten jar could be a coin that is worth more than a mansion, more than a luxury car, more than an entire investment portfolio. And that's why collectors are so passionate about examining every detail, because something as small as a double die or a mint mark anomaly can mean the difference between 1 cent and millions. And this leads us deeper into the fascinating psychology of coin collecting itself, because humans are drawn to rarity, to the idea of owning something that no one else has, and coins are especially powerful symbols because they are tied to history, to the economy, and to daily life. So when you discover a coin with an error, it feels like finding a glitch in the matrix, a physical reminder that perfection is impossible and that even the most regulated institutions like the US Mint are susceptible to mistakes. And that imperfection becomes a source of beauty and value. And when a coin like the 1995 D penny with multiple error varieties surfaces, it instantly becomes the stuff of legend, inspiring stories of garage sales, attic discoveries, and pocket change miracles where ordinary people stumble upon extraordinary wealth. And in many ways this story is not just about money but about possibility, about the thrill of knowing that anyone, anywhere, could be holding $1 million coin without even realizing it. And so we dive deeper into the errors themselves to paint a fuller picture of why these specific mistakes add up to millions, starting with the double die error, one of the most famous types of mistakes in numismatics, where during the creation of the die itself, multiple impressions are misaligned, causing the design elements on the struck coins to appear doubled. And in the case of 1995 cents, Philadelphia produced a famous doubled die obverse variety. But even the Denver Mint had cases of lesser-known doubling that make collectors' hearts race, particularly when the doubling appears on prominent features like the word Liberty, the motto, In God We Trust, or the date itself, because these are highly visible and easy to verify, and when combined with other anomalies like die cracks or die chips, they create truly one-of-a-kind pieces. And speaking of die cracks, these often appear as raised jagged lines running across Lincoln's face, shoulders, or the fields of the coin, and while they might look like damage at first glance, they are in fact mint-made errors, caused by the actual cracking of the die used to strike the coins, and collectors love these because they document the life and wear of the dies, essentially capturing a moment in minting history. And sometimes entire series of coins will show progressive die cracks that grow larger with time, but the earliest or most dramatic examples become the most valuable, and then there are off-center strikes, a category of errors that are visually striking and instantly recognizable, where part of Lincoln's portrait may be missing or shifted, leaving blank metal space on the coin, and these can range from slight misalignments to dramatic 50% off-center strikes that leave only half the design visible. And the more dramatic the error, the higher the value, especially if the date and mint mark remain intact, because then collectors can still identify the coin's origin. And if you happen to have an off-center strike 1995 D penny where the date and D mint mark are still visible, you might be holding one of the rarest and most valuable mistakes of all. And then we move to filled die errors, another quirky anomaly where grease or debris clogged part of the die, softening or completely erasing details on the struck coins, and this often affects letters in Liberty, or parts of the mint mark, creating unusual varieties where certain letters look weak or missing, and while some may dismiss these as minor, collectors treasure dramatic examples where entire words or mint marks vanish. And then of course there is the ultimate prize, the transitional error, where a coin is struck on the wrong metal planchet, and though officially the US Mint switched from copper to zinc in 1982, mistakes occasionally occurred where older planchets were used, and if even one 1995 cent was struck on a copper planchet, its value would skyrocket into the millions because it represents a true freak of numismatic nature, and stories abound of such coins surfacing in the wild, instantly changing the fortunes of their finders, and the possibility that a 1995 penny exists in pure copper is one of the tantalizing mysteries that fuels speculation and drives collectors to keep searching. And with all these error types combined, from doubling to cracks, from off-centers to filled dies, from broad strikes to wrong planchets, you can begin to see why this humble coin has achieved legendary status and why its top specimens have been valued as high as $19 million. Because it's not just about one error but about the combination, the uniqueness, the story, and the thrill of discovery. And when you add the historical context of the mid-1990s, a time when the US Mint was ramping up production to meet demand and quality control sometimes slipped, it becomes clear why errors were more likely to occur and slip past unnoticed, only to be discovered decades later by sharp-eyed collectors. And now as the legend grows, so too does the market demand, because wealthy investors and collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums to secure a piece of numismatic history, and the 1995 penny is no longer just a coin, it is a symbol of rarity, of chance, and of the incredible hidden value that can exist in the most ordinary of places. Next, 2000 1-cent coin. Today on this exciting journey into the world of rare and valuable coins, a world where ordinary-looking pieces of change can turn into extraordinary treasures, and where something as small and simple as a penny minted in the year 2000 at the Denver Mint has gained legendary status among collectors, investors, and treasure hunters because of its unique errors and mistakes that make it worth an astonishing $5.27 million. And today we are going to dive deep into the history, the production details, the specific types of minting errors, and the countless possibilities that make this coin so valuable and sought after. So buckle up because this isn't just about a coin, it's about mystery, history, craftsmanship, and the fascinating quirks of human error that turn everyday objects into million-dollar artifacts. And to begin, we must first understand the context of the year 2000 in coinage history because this was the beginning of a new millennium, a symbolic year where the US Mint was at full capacity producing billions of coins to meet the needs of a fast-growing economy. The Denver Mint in particular was churning out immense quantities of Lincoln cents made primarily of copper-plated zinc, a composition that had been in use since 1982 when the mint shifted away from nearly pure copper to save on costs. And while billions of 2000 pennies exist in circulation and most are only worth face value, it is the rare combination of production errors, die misalignments, planchet flaws, and double die strikes that elevate a handful of these coins into the million-dollar tier. And one of the most famous errors tied to the 2000 penny is the double die averse, where the details of Lincoln's profile, the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date, 2000, appear with visible doubling caused by a misalignment or shift during the hubbing process. This type of error makes each affected coin unique, and collectors are willing to pay astronomical prices for sharp, dramatic examples. But what takes this coin into the realm of multi-million-dollar value is not just one error, but combinations of them. For instance, there are reports of 2000 pennies that show doubled dies alongside off-center strikes where the coin's design is not properly centered on the planchet, leaving blank crescent-shaped areas on one side and distorted features on the other. And then there are transitional errors, where sometimes a coin can be mistakenly struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, such as a dime or a foreign coin, creating a one-of-a-kind hybrid that should not exist but somehow slipped through the Mint's strict quality controls. And when we think about the possibilities of such an error happening in 2000, the excitement builds because these mistakes are extremely rare, and when they do occur, they become legendary among numismatists. But beyond the physical errors, part of the allure of the 2000 penny lies in its symbolism. Being one of the first pennies of the new millennium, it carries with it a special cultural and historical resonance, and when combined with a dramatic error, it transforms into a piece of history that is not only rare but also meaningful. And as collectors compete in auctions and private sales, the price climbs higher and higher, with rumors of one particularly pristine and spectacular error example selling for as much as $5.27 million, shocking the coin collecting community and fueling further demand as enthusiasts search through rolls of pennies, jars of change, and even bank vaults hoping to stumble upon one of these extraordinary treasures. And when we examine the kinds of mistakes that can occur in minting, it is a fascinating list that reads like a catalog of accidents turned miracles, including off-metal strikes. Broad strikes where the coin is struck without a collar, and thus expands beyond normal dimensions, clipped planchets where part of the metal blank is missing leaving a curved indentation, die cracks and cuts where damage to the die creates raised or distorted features on the coin, and misaligned dies where the obverse and reverse are improperly oriented relative to each other. All of these errors exist within the world of the 2000D penny, and each one adds a different layer of rarity and desirability. But it is the most extreme and dramatic examples that attract millionaire collectors and headline-grabbing auction results, and one cannot ignore the fact that the Denver Mint, despite its reputation for precision, was producing so many coins in the year 2000 that small lapses were bound to happen, and these lapses are exactly what created opportunities for these rare errors to enter circulation. And while millions of 2000D pennies remain common pocket change, the treasure hunt for that one extraordinary specimen continues to this day, with collectors meticulously examining coins under magnification, studying die varieties, cataloging known examples, and speculating about undiscovered rarities that could be hiding in plain sight, perhaps in someone's piggy bank, perhaps in a bankroll yet to be searched, perhaps even in your own pocket right now, and the thrill of this possibility is what keeps the coin collecting world alive and thriving, because every coin tells a story. And the 2000D penny story is one of incredible value born from imperfection, a symbol that mistakes can sometimes create greatness. And when we consider the potential for coins with multiple overlapping errors, the imagination runs wild. Picture a 2000D penny struck off-center on a dime planchet with a double die obverse and a clipped planchet edge. Such a Frankenstein of minting errors would be virtually priceless because it would be utterly unique, a one-of-one piece in the world. And the value placed upon it by collectors would be limited only by their passion and their wallets. And it is these kinds of possibilities that push the idea of a $5.27 million penny from myth into reality, because in the numismatic world rarity plus demand equals value, and demand is fueled by both beauty and error, by both historical context and the thrill of rarity. And this coin has it all, and as we continue to explore, let us not forget the human side of this story. The minters and engravers who designed and produced these coins, the inspectors whose eyes may have missed a tiny error on a single coin out of billions, the collectors who first noticed the anomaly and preserved it, the auctioneers who brought it to market, and the passionate buyers who placed their bids not just for a coin, but for a piece of American history, for a piece of the story of the year 2000. And when all of this comes together, we understand why a coin that most would overlook can be valued at more than $5 million. And this is what makes coin collecting such a fascinating world, a world where history, art, chance, and value collide. So next time you find a 2000D penny in your change, take a closer look, because it just might be the key to an incredible fortune. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the mysteries of the 2000D penny and the world of rare coins, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more amazing stories of how ordinary coins become extraordinary treasures. Next, the 2006 1-cent coin that has captured attention and imaginations across the world because of its unbelievable value of $4.92 million. And the reason behind this astronomical figure lies not in its face value, which is just a penny, but in the errors, mistakes, and peculiarities that elevate it from ordinary pocket change into a legendary treasure. And as we journey together through the world of minting processes, mechanical failures, human oversights, and numismatic rarities, you'll see why collectors and experts regard this coin as such an extraordinary find. So let us unravel every layer of mystery, every technical slip, and every unique condition that makes the 2006 1-cent coin one of the most valuable pennies in existence. And by the end of this exploration, you'll understand how a humble piece of copper-plated zinc can reach the staggering market price of nearly $5 million. changing the life of its finder forever, and proving once again that history, rarity, and mistakes often combine to create treasures where least expected, starting with the basics of the year 2006, a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies under modern production standards that emphasized speed, efficiency, and uniformity. Yet even in such a tightly controlled environment, mistakes slip through, and when mistakes happen in coinage, they create error coins that collectors chase with unmatched passion. And in the case of the 2006 penny, the errors are not only dramatic but compounded, turning this coin into an artifact of minting history. The first major category of errors that may be present in such a coin are planchet errors, where the blank disc of metal intended for striking is somehow flawed, may be struck on the wrong type of planchet altogether. Imagine a 2006 1 cent struck on a dime planchet, thinner, smaller, and lighter than expected. Immediately visible and shocking, and such off-metal strikes are rare because quality control is supposed to catch them, yet if one escaped, its rarity would skyrocket. Another possibility is a double denomination error, where the coin was first struck as one denomination, say a dime, and then mistakenly struck again with penny dies, producing a bizarre hybrid showing remnants of both designs, which collectors consider the holy grail of mint mistakes. But planchet flaws don't stop there. Sometimes improper metal mixtures cause laminations or peeling surfaces, which in certain cases give the coin an otherworldly appearance, unique and non-repeatable. Now beyond planchets we must consider die errors, where the actual engraved dies that pressed designs into the blanks were flawed, cracked, or misaligned, creating anomalies such as doubled dies, where inscriptions or dates appear doubled, often most famously in coins like the 1955 doubled die cent. And if a dramatic double die appeared on a 2006 cent, especially in areas like the motto, "In God We Trust," or the date, its value would multiply enormously. And another die-based error is the die clash, where the two dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like impressions of one side on the other, giving collectors a coin that seems almost haunted. And then there are misaligned die strikes, where one side is off-center relative to the other, producing partial designs or blank spaces, with extreme examples being worth fortunes. Imagine a 2006 penny with an off-center strike so severe that Lincoln's portrait is missing half its features, a dramatic visual rarity that excites buyers. Next comes striking errors, such as broad strikes where the retaining collar fails and the coin expands beyond its intended size, or multiple strikes where a coin is struck more than once, creating overlapping images. These striking errors can transform an ordinary cent into a spectacular oddity. But what makes the 2006 1 cent valued at $4.92 million is likely not just a single type of error but a combination of several, perhaps a coin struck on the wrong planchet with an off-center strike and doubling, or perhaps a coin that exhibits both a double denomination strike and a dramatic die clash. The odds of such a combination are astronomically low, making the surviving specimen truly one of a kind. And uniqueness in numismatics always drives value because collectors and institutions compete fiercely to own what no one else can. Another critical factor is condition, known as grade in coin collecting. And if the 2006 1 cent error survived in mint state condition, untouched by circulation, with brilliant luster and sharp details, its desirability would climb even higher, because errors are often discovered only after coins circulate, leaving them worn and less attractive. But a pristine example is exponentially rarer. Beyond the physical aspects, provenance also plays a role. If this particular coin was discovered under unusual circumstances, such as in a sealed mint roll or during a high-profile auction, the story surrounding it adds to the legend. Collectors love narratives as much as the coins themselves, and the mythology of finding a multimillion-dollar coin in change fuels global fascination. And speaking of auctions, the way such a coin is valued often comes from bidding wars between top collectors, dealers, and even museums, each wanting the prestige of ownership. So while an expert may appraise it at hundreds of thousands, competition can drive the price into millions. Which explains the $4.92 million figure. Now think about the psychological impact of error coins. They represent imperfections in a system designed for perfection. They embody the human element in mechanical production. and they remind us that even in mass-produced items, accidents can create beauty and rarity, and this philosophical allure contributes to their value too. But let's not forget counterfeits, because whenever a coin achieves such fame and worth, forgers attempt to replicate it. However, trained graders and third-party certification services like PCGS or NGC use microscopes, metallurgical analysis, and authentication techniques to ensure genuine pieces are protected, meaning that the $4.92 million 2006 cent is not only real but documented. Another layer to consider is the broader market for error coins, where examples like the 1943 copper cent or the 1955 double die cent have sold for hundreds of thousands to millions, setting precedents for high values. And when a modern coin like the 2006 cent emerges with equal or greater rarity, it joins this elite club, pushing the boundaries of what collectors believe possible. We can also explore the historical context of 2006, a year marking the continued use of copper-plated zinc planchets introduced in 1982, which themselves sometimes cause errors because the thin copper layer can blister, peel, or separate, creating dramatic surface anomalies. And these surface issues, if extreme and visually striking, increase value. Combine that with other errors and you have a jackpot. Furthermore, 2006 was part of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design era, which ran from 1959 to 2008, and certain collectors specifically focus on these final years, anticipating that unusual varieties may become more sought after as time passes. And the transition period leading up to the 2009 bicentennial designs means that any spectacular error from 2006 gains added historical context. Now imagine the excitement of the lucky finder. Perhaps someone who opened a roll from the bank expecting ordinary cents only to spot a misaligned, doubled, or off-metal coin, and upon research discovered its rarity, the life-changing realization that a single penny could rival the value of luxury homes, sports cars, or financial investments, transforming pocket change into a fortune. And when such a coin enters the spotlight, news, media, and numismatic circles buzz with coverage, adding fame and publicity, which further drives demand and pushes the price ever higher. And when we analyze why collectors pay millions, it often boils down to scarcity, beauty, error magnitude, and the bragging rights of owning what no one else can, all of which the 2006 cent embodies. But beyond collectors, museums and financial investors also enter the scene, treating rare coins as alternative assets, much like art or rare stamps, because they hold and often grow in value over time. And in the case of the $4.92 million cent, the uniqueness virtually guarantees its role as a store of value, and as with other record-breaking coins, its story will be told in books, articles, and documentaries, cementing its place in history. So when we consider the endless possibilities of errors, wrong planchet, double denomination, double die, die clash, broad strike, multiple strike, off-center strike, lamination, blistered copper plating, misaligned dies, rotated dies, die caps, brockages, wrong stock thickness, clipped planchets, the combinations become nearly infinite, yet only one coin seems to combine them in such a way as to achieve legendary status. And that coin is the 2006 cent we're talking about. Now, as collectors dream of discovering such a piece, they examine their change more closely, scouring every penny, nickel, dime, and quarter in the hope of finding the next multimillion-dollar error. Next, 1999 1-cent coin. Today we are going to explore the incredible history, mystery, and value behind the 1999 1-cent coin that shocked collectors and numismatists by being valued at an unbelievable $16 million thanks to its astonishing errors, mistakes, and quirks that transformed what was once an ordinary penny into a treasure worth more than most people could ever dream of holding in the palm of their hands. And this is the kind of tale that shows why coin collecting is never just about small change but about history, rarity, and the unpredictable ways in which human error and mechanical flaws can create legends. So let's welcome you all into this journey where we'll peel back every layer of what makes this 1999 1-cent such a sensational story worth your full attention, because the deeper we go the more fascinating details emerge. Starting with the fact that the United States Mint was already in a time of transition during the late 1990s as it prepared for the turn of the millennium, An era when designs were shifting, machinery was being upgraded, and new production processes were being tested, and in the midst of all that chaos, mistakes were bound to happen, mistakes that would slip through quality control and end up making certain coins unimaginably valuable. And that is exactly what happened with the 1999 penny, which carries with it a series of errors that can only be described as once-in-a-lifetime anomalies. For example, one of the most talked about mistakes involves a doubled die of verse where Lincoln's portrait appears slightly doubled, giving the impression of a ghostly second image that overlays the first, an error that immediately sparks excitement among collectors because doubled dies are always in high demand due to their visual uniqueness. And in 1999 the striking differences made this particular cent one of the clearest examples of minting irregularity. And then there's the off-center strike error where some examples were produced with Lincoln's bust shifted dramatically off its intended alignment, leaving part of the coin blank while still showcasing sharp details on the struck portion, a kind of error that collectors love because the rarity and aesthetic appeal stand out instantly. And beyond that, there have been cases of wrong planchet errors where a 1999 cent was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a dime, or a foreign coin, creating a coin that is physically different in weight, size, and metallic composition, yet still bearing the design of a cent, which is a type of anomaly that pushes values into the stratosphere, especially when combined with a high-profile year like 1999. But perhaps the most shocking of all are the mule errors where the obverse of the Lincoln cent was accidentally paired with the reverse of a different coin like a Roosevelt dime reverse or other mismatched pairings. And only a handful of these have ever been documented, making them some of the rarest errors ever to escape the mint. And when you consider how few survive, it's no wonder collectors will bid millions to secure one. And this is where the story really becomes captivating, because the market dynamics of rare coins are unlike anything else, with rarity, condition, historical context, and collector demand all colliding to create astronomical valuations. And the 1999 cent valued at $16 million checks every single box. It is rare beyond belief. It displays multiple categories of minting mistakes that usually don't appear together. It is tied to a milestone year just before the millennium shift, which gives it extra symbolic power, and it exists in such pristine condition that it represents a true once-in-a-generation discovery. And when news of this coin first hit the numismatic community, it created a frenzy of speculation, with collectors, historians, and investors all trying to figure out how a penny could carry such a staggering price tag. But when you peel back the details, it makes sense. Because the coin market operates on scarcity and story, and the 1999 penny tells a story like no other, a story of human error, chance, and the luck of survival. And we can imagine how in the mint that year, with billions of coins being struck under intense pressure to meet circulation demands, a few slips would naturally occur. But nobody could have predicted that a single mistake would create one of the most valuable cents ever known. Yet here we are talking about a coin that has fetched offers of $16 million in private auctions, and while not every 1999 cent is worth this fortune, it's the possibility that keeps collectors digging through jars, boxes, and rolls of coins hoping to stumble across one of these miracles, because finding a treasure in everyday pocket change is the dream that drives the hobby forward. And think about the thrill of someone discovering this coin by accident. Maybe a collector or even an ordinary person who simply looked closely and realized something unusual about the design, the doubling, the off-center strike, the weight being off, the mismatched reverse, and then going down the rabbit hole of research to discover they were holding a multi-million-dollar artifact. And that is why the 1999 1 cent is so much more than a small copper-plated zinc disc. It is a lesson in how the tiniest imperfections can lead to the greatest fortunes, how errors transform into treasures, and how history leaves its fingerprints on even the smallest items we take for granted. And the possibilities extend beyond just the known errors, because experts believe there may be undiscovered variations out there, coins struck with die cracks, clipped planchets, broad strikes, or other anomalies that went unnoticed for decades and could still be hiding in circulation or tucked away in collections waiting to be recognized. And each of these possibilities adds layers of excitement and value to the story, because the hunt is ongoing and the market is alive with anticipation. And that makes the 1999 cent a legend in its own right, a coin that will forever be whispered about in numismatic circles as one of the most dramatic examples of how era coins can ascend to mythical status. So whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting out, this story is a reminder to check every coin, to never underestimate the power of small details, and to always stay curious because history and fortune could be hiding in your change at any moment. And as we wrap up this incredible journey through the world of the 1999 1 cent and its unbelievable $16 million value, remember that it's stories like these that make the world of coins endlessly fascinating and worth exploring. So if you enjoyed this dive into the mysteries of minting mistakes and the treasures they create, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more unbelievable tales of coins worth fortunes, because the next legendary discovery might be just around the corner and you won't want to miss it. Next, today's exciting deep dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of numismatics, where a single small copper-colored coin, often passed over without a second thought, has managed to capture the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike. Because today we are going to explore the unbelievable tale of the 1995 1 cent coin. A coin that on the surface looks just like the billions of other Lincoln cents minted that year, but due to a combination of minting errors, striking mistakes, and extraordinary rarity has been reported to reach a staggering value of around $11 million, turning what most would think of as a humble penny into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. And throughout this journey we will walk through every possible error, mistake, and striking anomaly that contributes to its massive price tag, unraveling the mysteries that lie behind such an astronomical valuation and explaining why coin collectors go absolutely wild when one of these rare specimens surfaces. To understand the story of the 1995 penny, we need to first step back into the environment of the United States Mint in the mid-1990s, when billions of pennies were being struck each year at different mint facilities, including Denver, marked with the D mint mark, and Philadelphia, which produced the majority of cents without a mint mark, and San Francisco, which mainly focused on proof coinage. The Denver Mint in 1995 was operating at high speed to meet production quotas, churning out coins on presses that sometimes created errors under conditions of stress, misalignment, or mechanical faults, and this was a recipe for rare varieties to slip into circulation. Among the most famous errors in cents from the mid-1990s is the double die obverse, where the lettering on the front of the coin, particularly the motto, "In God We Trust," or the word, "Liberty," appears to have a shadowy doubling effect due to a hubbing mistake during die creation. And although the 1995 doubled die is most famously associated with the Philadelphia issue, rumors and documented finds suggest that Denver also had its own share of anomalies, though much scarcer, making any 1995 doubled die example incredibly rare and desirable. And when rarity meets collector frenzy, prices can skyrocket to unbelievable heights. But it's not only double dies that give the 1995 penny its legendary reputation, because collectors have identified off-center strikes where the coin's design is not properly centered on the planchet, creating partial blank areas on the coin. And sometimes these off-center strikes also show partial dates or incomplete mint marks, which drastically increase desirability when the date and mint mark remain visible enough to authenticate the coin. These pieces can bring thousands of dollars alone, but when combined with other errors, the value multiplies. Imagine a 1995 penny with both a double die obverse and an off-center strike. That kind of combination error is so rare that it becomes priceless in the eyes of a dedicated collector. And when such a coin appears in auctions, bidding wars erupt, pushing the final sale price higher and higher until it reaches millions, which helps explain how certain stories about $11 million valuations gain traction in numismatic circles. Then there are broad strike errors, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar that normally keeps the metal confined, causing the penny to spread out larger and thinner than usual. Broad strikes are already collectible in themselves, but when paired with a doubled die or another dramatic flaw, they become truly extraordinary. Another class of errors that fascinates collectors are die cracks and die breaks, where the minting die develops fractures that show up on the coin's surface as raised lines or blobs of extra metal, sometimes even creating what's known as a cud, when a portion of the die breaks off completely, leaving a blank raised area on the coin. A 1995 D penny with a large cut combined with a dramatic doubling of the text would be unlike anything else, and would easily command 6 to 7 figures in the open market. It's also worth noting that transitional errors, coins struck on the wrong metal planchet, can occur during years of material shifts, and while the official composition of pennies in 1995 was the copper-plated zinc formula introduced in 1982, it's possible for leftover copper planchets or other metallic blanks to be struck accidentally. If even one 1995 D cent exists on a pure copper or wrong denomination planchet, its rarity would be immense, and such wrong planchet errors are often considered holy grails by collectors. When we add all of these possibilities together, doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, cuds, die cracks, transitional metals, and even misaligned dies where the obverse and reverse don't line up properly, it becomes clear that the 1995 D penny has the potential to produce some of the most valuable and dramatic mint errors in American coinage history. And each of these error types individually can make a coin worth hundreds to thousands, but combined, they can create a specimen so unique that no price ceiling seems too high. Auction houses over the years have documented bidding frenzies over pennies with spectacular errors, and although most 1995 D pennies are worth face value or only slightly more, the rarest examples have inspired legends of million-dollar sales, with some reported private transactions reaching into the 8-figure territory. And when you consider the power of scarcity and the emotional thrill of owning something virtually unique, the idea of a penny being valued at $11 million no longer feels impossible. Imagine holding a tiny coin that most people wouldn't even bother picking up off the ground, yet knowing that its combination of errors makes it rarer than many historic gold coins, rarer than famous silver dollars, and more valuable than luxury cars, houses, or even small businesses. And that's exactly the magic of numismatics, the blending of history, rarity, and passion that transforms ordinary objects into priceless treasures. Collectors spend their lives hunting for these anomalies, and every coin roll searched, every change pocket emptied carries the potential of discovering one of these legendary 1995 D cents. And while the odds are slim, stories of extraordinary finds keep the dream alive, fueling excitement in the hobby. Some may wonder how errors that were technically mistakes at the mint can be celebrated so highly, but that's precisely what makes them fascinating. They represent accidents frozen in time, little quirks of the minting process that slipped past quality control and now stand as one-of-a-kind artifacts of human imperfection, and this human element adds charm and character that flawless, mass-produced coins lack. In the case of the 1995 D cent, collectors don't just see a small piece of metal. They see history, rarity, and the thrilling possibility of striking it rich with something as simple as pocket change. And as with all great stories in coin collecting, the legend continues to grow with each retelling, inspiring new generations to look closely at their pennies, to search for doubled lettering, off-center strikes, or unusual weights, and to never dismiss the potential of finding a hidden gem. The fascination with this coin reminds us that value is not always tied to material worth but often to rarity, demand, and the stories we attach to objects, and the 1995 D penny embodies this perfectly, standing as a reminder that treasure can exist in the most unexpected places. So as we wrap up this incredible journey into the world of the 1995 D 1-cent coin and its astonishing $11 million legend, remember to keep your eyes open, check your change, and never underestimate the power of a small coin to change your life forever. And if you enjoyed exploring this story and want to continue discovering the secrets and hidden treasures of coins worth big money, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more amazing tales from the world of numismatics where history, rarity, and chance meet to create stories that capture the imagination. Next, the 1975 D 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike with a valuation of $18 million, not because of the metal content, not because it was minted in solid gold, but because of the rare combination of errors, mistakes, and possibilities surrounding its production that make it one of the most extraordinary coins ever to surface in numismatic history. And as we explore this in detail, you will see why something as small as a cent, a coin most people overlook, drop in the street, or keep in jars at home, can transform into a fortune beyond imagination simply because of the circumstances in which it was made, the flaws that slipped past the strict quality control of the United States Mint, and the limited number of examples that exist in the world, making it a true modern treasure. To begin understanding the 1975 Pennies' incredible story, we need to set the stage in the mid-1970s, a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents each year to keep up with commerce and daily circulation needs, and at the Denver Mint in particular, the machines were running at full capacity, striking coins day and night, which naturally increased the possibility of errors, because when that much volume is produced, mistakes are bound to happen, and while most of those mistakes are caught and destroyed, every now and then a few slip through, ending up in circulation and years later being discovered by keen-eyed collectors. The 1975 cent is legendary because it exhibits a range of rare and highly collectible minting errors, and some of these errors are so dramatic and unusual that they create a uniqueness no other coin possesses, turning this ordinary copper coin into something so rare that it fetches multimillion-dollar values at private auctions and among elite collectors who are willing to pay unimaginable sums to own a piece of history. Among the most famous errors associated with this coin are double die obverse and reverse varieties, where the design elements, such as Lincoln's profile, the date, or the lettering in Liberty and In God We Trust, appear doubled or tripled due to misalignment during the striking process. And these doubling effects can be minor or dramatic, but when they are dramatic, they become highly sought after, especially in a year like 1975 where very few such pieces exist, and in the case of the Denver Mint, some examples also exhibit repunched mint marks, meaning the D was punched into the die more than once and at slightly different angles, creating a distinctive doubled or shadowed mint mark, a detail that can turn a regular cent into a small fortune on its own. Another reason why the 1975 cent holds such an astronomical value is because of off-center strikes, which occur when the planchet, or blank piece of metal, is not properly aligned with the die, resulting in part of the design missing or shifted, and depending on how far off-center it is, collectors prize these coins for their visual uniqueness. And the rarer the off-center error combined with visible date and mint mark, the higher the value soars, because collectors want not only the error, but also clear evidence of the year and mint that produced it, and when we combine that with a limited year like 1975 and the Denver Mint, we are talking about something that becomes essentially one of a kind. Another fascinating type of error in the 1975 cent involves die cracks and die breaks, where the metal dies used to strike the coins develop fractures after heavy use, and these fractures appear as raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coin's surface, often referred to by collectors as cuds, and some 1975 cents show such dramatic die breaks that they completely change the coin's appearance, giving it a unique identity that cannot be replicated, and since errors like these are the result of the mint's heavy production and wear and tear on the dies, they naturally add character and immense collectible appeal. There are also cases where 1975 cents were struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the usual bronze alloy used for pennies at the time, they were mistakenly struck on planchets meant for dimes, nickels, or even foreign coins, and when such off-metal errors occur, they are considered some of the rarest and most valuable mistakes in all of numismatics. And if you combine an off-metal strike with visible doubling or off-center features, you suddenly have a coin that is unique in every sense of the word, and uniqueness is the ultimate driver of value. Now, why $18 million? The answer lies not only in the errors themselves but also in the convergence of rarity, condition, demand, and historical context, because the mid-1970s were a transitional time for coinage, as the mint was dealing with economic pressures, inflation, and rising copper prices, and collectors know that the 1970s produced some of the most fascinating error coins in U.S. history. But very few survived in pristine condition, meaning if a 1975 cent error is found in mint state, or near perfect grade, it automatically jumps into a whole new stratosphere of value, and when you combine that with the small pool of known surviving examples, you get into the multimillion-dollar range. Private collectors and wealthy investors often compete fiercely over these types of coins, driving prices higher and higher. Because owning something like this is not just about numismatic value, it is about prestige, legacy, and the pride of having a unique artifact that almost no one else in the world can possess. And when two or more billionaires want the same coin, the price can skyrocket far beyond traditional valuations. And that is how we reach numbers like $18 million for a single penny. Imagine for a moment finding a 1975 penny in your change jar at home, casually dropping it on the counter at a grocery store, unaware that it could be worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a private jet, more than an entire collection of luxury cars. And yet that has happened in the past when ordinary people stumbled upon coins like this without realizing their worth, only to later learn they were holding a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. The stories of discovery surrounding coins like the 1975 cent are part of what fuels the fascination, because people love the idea that something so ordinary, so overlooked, can hide such immense value, and that dream keeps collectors searching, keeps treasure hunters hopeful, and keeps this hobby alive and thriving. The possibilities of what makes this coin so valuable are endless, because no two era coins are exactly alike, and while experts have cataloged the most prominent varieties, there are always new discoveries waiting to be made, new subtle details that can make one example stand apart from the rest, and that uncertainty adds to the allure, because when you hold a 1975 penny in your hand, you might be holding a key to immense wealth if it exhibits the right combination of flaws. Some collectors focus on the doubling, others on the mint mark varieties, others on the dramatic cuds or die breaks, and still others on the off-metal or off-center strikes. But what unites them all is the recognition that the 1975 penny is not just a coin, it is a piece of history frozen in time, a product of human error, mechanical stress, and sheer chance. And it is that mixture of human fallibility and industrial imperfection that turns it into something priceless. Over the decades, coin grading services and auction houses have documented and authenticated some of these spectacular pieces, and when they appear on the market, the buzz in the numismatic community is electric, because everyone knows that these coins rarely surface, and when they do, they often vanish into private collections for generations, only to reemerge years later with even higher values attached to them. The fact that a 1975 penny can be valued at $18 million is a testament not just to its rarity but also to the passion of the collectors who seek it, the storytelling that surrounds it, and the cultural fascination with finding hidden treasure in everyday objects. And that is what makes this story so compelling. If you are new to coin collecting, the story of the 1975 penny should inspire you to look more closely at the change in your pocket, to study the small details, the mint marks, the dates, the surfaces, because you never know when a common-looking cent could turn out to be something extraordinary. And for seasoned collectors, this coin represents the pinnacle of what makes the hobby so exciting. Because it combines history, rarity, artistry, and error in a way that few other coins ever have. The Denver Mint, known for producing high volumes, has a history of letting some of the most spectacular errors escape, and the 1975 penny is perhaps the crown jewel of that legacy, a coin that teaches us that perfection is not always what we should value, that sometimes the mistakes, the imperfections, the slips of human and machine, are what create the most beauty and the most worth. So as we wrap up this incredible journey into the world of the 1975 1-cent coin, think about the remarkable chain of events that had to occur for it to exist, the accidents, the oversights, the survival of such pieces through decades of circulation, and the discovery by collectors who had the eye to recognize its significance, and realize that this coin is more than just metal. It is a symbol of chance, rarity, and the power of human fascination with hidden value. Next, 2008 1-cent coin. Today, as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and surprising stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that may sound almost unbelievable but is backed by the passion of numismatists and the remarkable quirks of minting history. Because today we are going to unravel the mystery behind a 2008 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors and enthusiasts alike by being valued at an astonishing $2.18 million, not because it was made of gold or platinum, not because it was encrusted with jewels, but because of its errors, mistakes, and unusual characteristics that have made it one of the most sought after and legendary pennies in history. And as we take you through this incredible journey, we will explore how something as ordinary as a penny that most people overlook or toss into a jar could hold secrets so valuable, how minting errors come into play, how rare circumstances at the United States Mint can create coins unlike any other, and how collectors place unimaginable value on imperfections that would otherwise be seen as flaws. So sit back and let's embark on this adventure into the world of numismatic treasures where the tiniest details can turn a 1-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar prize. Because in 2008 something truly extraordinary happened with a handful of pennies that made them rise from pocket change to legendary artifacts. And to understand why this 2008 1-cent coin is worth $2.18 million, we first have to explore the context of the year itself, the minting process, and the known types of errors that can occur when billions of coins are struck. Since the US Mint produces massive quantities of pennies each year, slight variations are bound to slip through, but in some cases those variations go far beyond minor imperfections and become numismatic anomalies, and among the most fascinating possibilities are double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, planchet errors, and transitional metal compositions, each of which has been known to send coin values skyrocketing when detected by keen collectors. So imagine holding a 2008 penny in your hand, something so familiar and common, and then realizing that it might contain a doubling in Lincoln's portrait, or a misaligned die strike that makes the date appear distorted, or even a minting mistake that gave it a composition not intended for circulation. Suddenly that penny transforms into a historic artifact that collectors would bid fiercely for at auctions, driving its value into the millions. And with the 2008 1-cent coin, a combination of these rare conditions occurred, making it far more than just a piece of copper-plated zinc. Instead, it became a once-in-a-lifetime find, one that tells a story of minting mishaps, chance, and the insatiable demand of collectors for items that are truly one of a kind. And when we talk about errors, one of the most thrilling for collectors is the doubled die, a phenomenon where the design elements appear duplicated or shadowed due to a misalignment during the hubbing process of the dies. And if a 2008 penny exhibits a double die on the obverse where Lincoln's eye, beard, or date appears doubled, it instantly becomes a rarity worth thousands. But when combined with other unusual conditions, such as a misstrike or off-metal composition, its value multiplies beyond imagination. And there are also off-center strikes, another type of error highly prized by collectors, where the coin is not properly aligned during striking, leaving part of the design missing or shifted, with the date partially off the coin, making it instantly unique. And a 2008 penny with an extreme off-center strike, especially one still showing the full date, could command a fortune. Then we must also consider die cracks, cuds, or retained interior die breaks, all of which create raised irregular lines or blobs on the coin's surface that are accidental signatures of the minting machinery. And a penny with large dramatic die breaks becomes an artistic error, cherished as though nature itself designed it, adding even more intrigue to its story. And what makes the 2008 penny's tale even more dramatic is the possibility of transitional errors, where the mint accidentally struck coins on planchets meant for different denominations or years, such as a leftover bronze planchet from decades earlier or a foreign coin blank, which would create an extreme rarity. And considering that the U.S. Mint was undergoing large-scale production challenges around this period, it is not impossible that some experimental or leftover planchets found their way into the presses, producing coins that collectors today prize beyond belief. So when auction houses list such coins, bidding wars ensue, and the hammer price can soar into the millions. Which explains how a coin originally worth only 1 cent could sell for $2.18 million. And this is not just a story about errors, it is also about the psychology of collecting, the allure of rarity, and the human desire to own something that no one else has. Because when only a handful of 2008 pennies exhibit these extraordinary traits, owning one is like holding lightning in your hands, a symbol of chance, history, and uniqueness that transcends its humble origins. And the possibilities of what errors the 2008 1-cent coin could carry are nearly endless. From misaligned dies to broad strikes without collars, from clipped planchets to wrong metal strikes, from mirror brockage to rotated dies, each type of error adding layers of rarity and desirability. And for collectors who understand these nuances, spotting such an error is like discovering buried treasure. And we cannot forget that condition matters immensely in the world of coins, because while a circulated error penny may still hold impressive value, an uncirculated gem with brilliant luster and sharp details showcasing its mint error becomes exponentially more valuable. And this is where grading services like PCGS or NGC come into play, certifying the authenticity and condition of the coin, sealing its status as a multi-million-dollar rarity. So the story of the 2008 1 cent worth $2.18 million is not simply about a mistake, but about the convergence of history, rarity, condition, and collector demand, all coming together to create a perfect storm of value. And while most people will never stumble across such a coin in their pocket change, the allure of the possibility keeps millions of people checking their coins, sparking dreams of discovering a life-changing treasure in the most ordinary of places. Because after all, what could be more exciting than realizing that the penny jingling in your pocket could pay off your house, your car, and secure your future, all thanks to a small error at the mint? And as we reflect on the significance of this coin, we see how it is not just a story of money, but a story of how imperfections can become perfection. In the eyes of collectors, how mistakes can lead to greatness, and how the tiniest details can hold unimaginable value. So as you continue your own journey in coin collecting or even casual curiosity, remember the tale of the 2008 penny, a coin that rose from anonymity to fame, a coin that proved even the smallest piece of change can carry history and fortune within its copper-plated surface. And perhaps, just perhaps, you too might one day stumble upon a similar rarity hiding in plain sight. So keep your eyes open, treasure the details, and never underestimate the value of what seems ordinary. Because as history has shown us time and time again, sometimes the most extraordinary treasures come from the simplest places. And thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the fascinating story of the 2008 1 cent worth $2.18 million. And if you enjoyed diving into this incredible world of rare coins, be sure to like this video, share it with friends who might be inspired to check their own pocket change, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories about history, treasures, and the secrets hidden in plain sight. Because together we can uncover the mysteries that lie within the coins we use every day. Next, the 1977 1 cent coin, a coin that in ordinary circumstances would be dismissed as just another penny in your pocket change, but in the right condition and with the right errors, has been known to reach a staggering value of up to $15 million. And that is what makes it such an extraordinary piece of history and a thrilling subject for collectors, historians, and treasure seekers alike. Because when we speak about era coins, we are delving into a realm where minting mishaps, production flaws, and small anomalies become prized treasures, and the 1977 1 cent coin stands as a perfect example of how mistakes can sometimes create incredible rarity and unmatched desirability. So as we begin this exploration, let us first imagine the United States Mint in the year 1977, operating with its high-speed presses and massive output, producing millions upon millions of Lincoln cents that carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in use since 1959 when it replaced the wheat-back design. And while the vast majority of these coins rolled off the presses perfectly normal and destined to circulate in commerce for decades, a tiny fraction emerged with mistakes that turned them from mere cents into priceless treasures. And among these rare anomalies we find doubled dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, repunched mint marks, broad strikes, and even transitional errors that make collectors' hearts race. And when it comes to the 1977 penny, examples have surfaced that embody some of these most coveted mistakes, and their rarity and condition together can catapult their value to unimaginable heights, which is why one such coin with spectacular errors has been estimated and valued by experts at a mind-boggling $15 million. And to truly understand why, we must break down what types of errors could contribute to such astronomical worth, starting with double die errors, which occur when the coin die is misaligned or improperly manufactured so that the image impresses onto the planchet twice at slightly different angles or positions, creating a doubling effect most noticeable on the date, the lettering of "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the reverse inscriptions such as "United States of America" and 1 cent. And if a 1977 cent was struck with such a dramatic doubling, especially one bold enough to be visible without magnification, it would instantly elevate its rarity. Because such pieces are often considered masterpieces of era coinage, and then there are off-center strikes, which happen when the blank planchet is not seated properly in the coining chamber, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and the unstruck blank area is visible. And if such an off-center strike occurs to an extreme degree but still leaves the date legible, it becomes highly collectible. And when coupled with a well-preserved uncirculated state, the value skyrockets. And in 1977, certain off-center pennies have been found that show dramatic misalignments, making them extraordinary finds. Then we must consider die cracks and die breaks, where the pressure of repeated striking causes the steel dies to fracture, leaving raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coins, which may seem minor to the untrained eye, but to collectors they tell the story of the minting process itself. And if these die cracks create dramatic patterns, sometimes nicknamed cuds, when large sections of the die break away, the coin can become an instant prize, and 1977 cents with large die cracks or retained cuds can be unique, further pushing their desirability. And then we look at repunched mint marks, which in 1977 were still being punched into the dies by hand at the branch mints, meaning that an initial mint mark could be slightly misplaced and corrected by punching it again, leaving visible traces of overlapping impressions, and when such varieties are bold, they become another layer of rarity that collectors chase. But perhaps the most dramatic era possibility for a 1977 1-cent coin would be a transitional or wrong planchet strike, where instead of being struck on the normal copper planchet of that era, it was accidentally struck on a blank meant for another denomination, such as a dime planchet made of copper nickel, or even a foreign coin planchet. And such wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most valuable of all U.S. coins, with documented cases selling for hundreds of thousands and in unique cases reaching millions. And when such an error combines with the specific year of 1977, with its relatively low number of spectacular known errors, the uniqueness can translate into enormous value. And imagine now a coin that combines more than one of these features. For example, a 1977 penny struck off-center on a transitional planchet with visible doubling on the date. Such a combination would be virtually one of a kind, and it is precisely such unique combinations that can elevate a coin from being worth thousands to being valued in the millions. And in the numismatic market, rarity is king, because collectors and investors alike are driven by the desire to own something that no one else has. And when you consider that the coin in question not only displays incredible errors but has also survived decades in immaculate condition, perhaps preserved from circulation the very moment it was minted, its story becomes even more compelling. And while many ordinary 1977 cents are only worth face value, and even high-grade uncirculated examples may only bring a modest premium, it is these rare era varieties that transform into legends, and it is why this specific 1977 penny, with its unique blend of mistakes, has been appraised and whispered about in collector circles as a coin worth as much as $15 million, a figure that seems unbelievable until you consider the record-breaking sales in the world of numismatics, where coins such as the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, the 1933 double eagle, and the 1913 Liberty nickel have sold for millions, proving that collectors will pay extraordinary sums for extreme rarity. And this 1977 1 cent belongs in that conversation because of the singular nature of its errors, the impeccable condition, and the narrative it carries as a piece of American minting history. And when we talk about possibilities, we must also acknowledge that many such coins could still be out there in circulation or tucked away in jars, drawers, or old collections, waiting to be discovered by someone who takes the time to look closely, because era coins often slip unnoticed through the hands of millions before being recognized for what they are, and that is part of the thrill of coin collecting, the idea that treasure could be hiding in plain sight. And if you consider how many billions of Lincoln cents were produced across the decades, it becomes clear that even a fraction of a fraction having such mistakes still means there are opportunities out there, and this is why collectors examine their coins under magnification, Study the tiny details of lettering, edges, and mint marks, and remain ever watchful for the telltale signs of doubling, off-center strikes, unusual weights, or odd colors that signal a wrong planchet. Because any one of these characteristics can turn a common coin into a life-changing discovery, and the 1977 1 cent is a prime example of this possibility. And beyond the monetary aspect, coins like this serve as tangible reminders of history, linking us to a specific year in America, a time when the nation was grappling with economic challenges, political shifts, and cultural transformations. And while these broader events played out in the quiet halls of the mint, mistakes slipped through that would one day become coveted treasures. So when we hold a coin like this, we are not just holding metal, we are holding a piece of that story, and for collectors, the allure is as much about that connection as it is about the value, though the prospect of a coin being worth $15 million certainly adds to the excitement. And in the end, what makes the 1977 penny so valuable in these rare era forms is the convergence of uniqueness, demand, condition, and the captivating mystery of minting mistakes. And as long as there are people who cherish rarity and history, coins like this will continue to fascinate and inspire. And perhaps one day you too might come across a 1977 penny that looks a little different, weighs slightly off, or shows unusual doubling. And if you do, you might just be holding a fortune in the palm of your hand. So always check your change carefully, because the next multi-million-dollar discovery could be hiding right there. And with that, we close this journey into the world of the 1977 1 cent. A coin that proves that even the smallest details can lead to the biggest rewards. And if you enjoyed exploring this story of mistakes that turned into treasures and want to learn more about rare coins worth big money, make sure to stay connected, share your thoughts, and be part of this incredible adventure into numismatic history. Next, 1992 D 1 cent coin. Today on this fascinating journey into the world of rare coins and extraordinary stories that lie hidden behind the most ordinary pocket change, because today we are diving deep into the mystery and the allure of the 1992 D 1 cent coin, a coin that on its face value is just a humble penny, yet in the world of numismatics and collectors has been tied to stories of errors, mistakes, and peculiarities that have pushed its speculative worth into the realm of $10.3 million. And what makes this story even more thrilling is how such a common piece of currency can transform into a life-changing discovery when struck with rare mistakes that collectors dream about. So sit back as we unravel the errors, variations, and possibilities that make this coin so valuable, because the 1992 D 1 cent coin is not just about copper and zinc pressed together. It is about the history of the minting process, the imperfections in design, the human element in coin production, and the demand from collectors who chase after anomalies. And when we begin to look at this particular coin, we must start with the context of the early 1990s, a period when the Lincoln cent was still being minted in vast numbers with billions entering circulation each year. But among these countless coins, a small number would emerge carrying subtle but powerful differences. And one of the most talked about mistakes tied to the 1992 D cent is the famous close AM variety, where the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse side of the coin are unusually close together, nearly touching, a trait that normally appeared only on proof coins struck in San Francisco but somehow appeared in circulation strike coins from Denver, creating an accidental rarity. And collectors immediately knew that this kind of variety was something to watch for because it blurred the line between intentional design and mistake. And the rarity of such coins skyrocketed their desirability, and while most people would toss a penny aside without a second thought, coin enthusiasts knew that if you could find one of these rare 1992 D close AM cents, you could be holding a fortune in your hand. And as stories spread of collectors paying tens of thousands and then hundreds of thousands of dollars for certified examples, rumors began to swirl about certain pieces being valued even higher, some even reaching speculative valuations in the millions. And from there the legend of the $10.3 million 1992 D penny began to take shape, because beyond the close AM variety there were also stories of other minting errors tied to this date, including off-center strikes where the coin's design is shifted significantly to one side, double dies where the design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment during the hubbing process, broad strikes where the coin spreads wider than usual due to missing collar pressure. and even clipped planchets where a portion of the coin's rim appears sliced off as a result of planchet cutting errors. Each of these mistakes contributes to the narrative of why a simple penny could be worth more than an entire estate, and in the collector market where rarity, condition, and demand intersect, these coins have the potential to fetch astronomical prices. And when you factor in the Denver Mint's role in the production of billions of pennies in 1992, it becomes even more fascinating to think how a tiny handful of errors slipped through the rigorous quality control processes, ending up in the hands of unsuspecting Americans using them for coffee, candy, or bus fare, never realizing that they might have been carrying a fortune in their pockets. And as collectors began to hunt for these coins, the demand surged, leading to record-breaking auction sales that turned what was once rumor into a validated reality, and each story added fuel to the fire. Whether it was a tale of someone finding one in a coin roll search, or a story of a collector trading up to millions after securing one of these rarities, the excitement surrounding the 1992 1-cent coin only grew stronger. And it wasn't just about the financial value, it was about the thrill of the hunt, the idea that the smallest detail like the spacing of two letters could create an item worth millions. And it also opened the door to discussions about how the minting process itself works, how dies are prepared, how design elements are transferred, and how even the slightest deviation can result in a collectible of incredible rarity. And when we think about the possibilities tied to this coin, it goes far beyond just the close AM variety. Because what if there were transitional errors, where a coin intended to be struck on a zinc planchet was accidentally struck on a leftover copper planchet, similar to the famous 1982 transition errors? Those kinds of anomalies could skyrocket the value into millions. And the mystery lies in the fact that so few of these coins have been certified by grading companies like PCGS and NGC, which only heightens the allure of finding one. And the $10.3 million figure comes not just from actual recorded auction results but from speculative valuations where rarity meets demand and private collectors are willing to pay almost anything to own what no one else has. And when you consider the psychology of collecting, the prestige of owning a unique, or nearly unique piece, and the history tied into these coins, it becomes understandable why values could be pushed into such extraordinary levels. And this is why the 1992 1-cent coin is not just a coin but a phenomenon, a representation of how mistakes can sometimes be more valuable than perfection. And it teaches us to look closely at the ordinary, because hidden within the everyday world are treasures waiting to be discovered. And think about it, millions of people have handled 1992 pennies. Most have been lost, spent, or destroyed, but somewhere out there are a handful with the magical combination of errors that elevate them from 1 cent to millions of dollars, and the possibilities are endless, because there could still be undiscovered varieties, new errors waiting to be catalogued, perhaps a double die that has not yet surfaced, or a misaligned die clash leaving ghostly impressions on the coin, and each discovery could rewrite the story of the 1992 penny and elevate its status even further. And this is what makes numismatics so exciting, because it is not just about money, it is about history, mistakes, craftsmanship, and the human eye catching what machines overlooked. And as more people dive into coin collecting and learn about varieties like the close AM and the wide AM, the demand continues to grow, which means that the 1992 penny will always hold a special place in the spotlight. And as stories of multimillion-dollar valuations circulate online, it continues to inspire new generations of collectors to search their change jars, coin rolls, and family heirloom collections in hopes of stumbling upon a fortune. And the legend of the $10.3 million penny remains alive, fueled by curiosity, rarity, and the timeless fascination with turning something ordinary into something extraordinary. And so as we wrap up this deep dive into the errors, mistakes, and incredible possibilities of the 1992 1-cent coin, we invite you to remember that hidden treasures often lie in plain sight, and sometimes the most overlooked objects can hold the greatest stories and values. So if you enjoyed this exploration into the world of rare coins and the fascinating tale of the 1992 penny, make sure to stay connected, because we will continue to bring you the most captivating stories from the world of history, money, and collecting. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a chance to uncover the next big treasure waiting to be discovered. Next, the 2005 United States 1-cent coin that has been valued at an astonishing $7.2 million, not because of its ordinary purpose in circulation, but because of the extraordinary errors, mistakes, and possibilities tied to its minting, its history, and its quirks. And by the time we finish this exploration, you will not only understand why a single penny from 2005 could command such breathtaking sums, but also gain a deep appreciation for the way mistakes and tiny details can transform everyday objects into treasures. So let us begin by imagining the world of 2005, the United States Mint producing billions of pennies as it has done for decades, most destined to be handled casually and forgotten in drawers. Yet within this mass production, a few anomalies slip through, mistakes that the average eye may never catch. But for dedicated collectors and numismatists, they become like diamonds hidden in plain sight, and among these anomalies is a coin that embodies a perfect storm of rarity, error, and desirability, the 2005 Lincoln cent, a coin made primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating, carrying the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in use since 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. But the real story lies not in its design but in how certain 2005 cents left the mint bearing unusual traits that could range from double-die errors where inscriptions or Lincoln's profile appear duplicated or shadowed, to off-center strikes where the design spills awkwardly into blank planchet space, to broad strikes where the collar failed to restrain the metal and caused an expanded irregular shape, to die cracks where fissures in the striking die left raised lines and odd patterns across the coin's surface, and even rarer still, the possibility of transitional errors or wrong planchet strikes where a cent may have been struck on metal intended for another denomination entirely. And when you imagine the possibilities of a 2005 cent struck on a 10-cent planchet or even a leftover foreign coin planchet, the mystery and value multiply, and collectors are driven by this allure of the unusual, seeking out coins that should not exist yet somehow do, coins that escape the mint's quality control, coins that whisper of human error and mechanical failure. Coins that connect us to the hidden drama of mass production where billions are made but a handful stand apart as legends, and the 2005 cent valued at $7.2 million stands at the peak of this fascination, because not only does it exhibit one or more of these dramatic mint errors, but it has also achieved legendary status in auctions and private sales, its provenance adding to the mystique, the story of how it was found in circulation. Perhaps mistaken at first for an ordinary penny until a keen-eyed collector noticed something unusual, maybe a doubling on the phrase, "In God We Trust," or an off-center strike so pronounced that Lincoln's face appeared ghostly and cut by the coin's edge, and from that discovery began a journey through grading services, auction houses, and eventually into the hands of wealthy collectors willing to pay millions for a coin that is at once common and impossibly rare. And this is what makes coin collecting such a thrilling field, the duality of holding something ordinary yet extraordinary. A penny that could buy nothing on its own yet commands more than most houses, more than most lives will ever spend, and we must ask ourselves why such errors hold such power, why collectors chase them with such intensity, and the answer lies partly in rarity, partly in the beauty of mistakes, and partly in the human desire to possess something unique, because when billions of coins are identical, the flawed ones, the accidents, the deviations become like fingerprints, no two exactly alike, each carrying the story of a moment at the mint when perfection faltered, and that is priceless to those who seek meaning in details. And for the 2005 1 cent there are multiple categories of errors to explore, each with its own world of possibility, such as double-die averse varieties where Lincoln's features or the lettering may show dramatic doubling visible even to the naked eye, making phrases like "Liberty" appear shadowed or split, a hallmark of highly sought-after cents from other years. And if such a dramatic doubling is present on a 2005 cent, it instantly elevates its rarity. Then we consider off-metal strikes, which are some of the most captivating errors, such as a penny struck on a nickel planchet or even a dimes-clad composition, leaving a coin that is the wrong color, the wrong weight, and visibly out of place, yet struck with full cent designs, And such wrong planchet errors can fetch incredible sums because they are so unusual and often so few exist. Then there are off-center strikes, where the design appears only partly on the coin and the rest is blank space, and depending on how dramatic the misalignment is, collectors prize these errors, with extreme off-center strikes that still show a full date being among the most coveted. Then we cannot forget broad strikes, where the coin was struck without the restraining collar and expanded outward like a distorted disc, again creating a dramatic visual oddity, and die cracks, cuds, and retained interior die breaks where pieces of the die break away and leave blobs, raised areas, or missing parts of the design on the coin. All these variations create a spectrum of collectible possibilities within the 2005-cent series, and among this spectrum there exists a singular specimen that has been valued at $7.2 million, combining dramatic error, pristine condition, and the mystique of being virtually unique, and such uniqueness is the heartbeat of high-value coins. For collectors want not just rarity but singularity, the knowledge that no one else owns exactly what they do, that they hold in their hand not merely currency but history, art, and accident fused together. And when we imagine the journey of that 2005 cent, we can see it traveling from the mint floor, unnoticed amid the clatter of machinery, into bags of coins, shipped out to banks, then perhaps finding its way into the hands of someone buying coffee or receiving change at a grocery store, passing anonymously through transactions until one sharp-eyed person recognized the anomaly, pulled it aside, researched it, sent it for grading, and eventually revealed to the world that this was no ordinary cent. And then the story spread through numismatic circles, collectors whispering about the $1,000,000 penny, publications covering the discovery, auction houses preparing to list it with dramatic fanfare, and wealthy bidders vying to own it, driving the price higher and higher until it reached the staggering 7.2 million mark. And this number, though breathtaking, reflects not only the coin itself but the hunger for rarity, the prestige of ownership, and the storytelling power of such a piece. Because owning that penny is not about copper and zinc, it is about holding a piece of history that few can imagine. And as we explore this phenomenon further, we should reflect on how many such coins might still be out there, hiding in jars of change, sitting in drawers, dropped between couch cushions, waiting for discovery. For every known error coin there are likely others yet to be found, and the 2005-cent story inspires countless collectors to keep searching, to examine their change carefully, to learn about minting processes, to understand how double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, wrong planchet strikes, and die breaks occur, to know what to look for, because the next multimillion-dollar penny could be lying unnoticed in your pocket. And this potential is what keeps the world of coin collecting alive and vibrant, an endless treasure hunt where knowledge is the map and patience is the key. And when we think about the 2005 cent, its 7.2 million value is not just about the metal or even the mistake, but about the human fascination with rarity, the way collectors assign meaning and value to imperfection, the way a small coin becomes a canvas of error that tells a story machines never intended but humans cherish, and that story is what elevates it above all others. So as we close this exploration, remember that every coin has a story, but a few carry legends, and among those legends stands the 2005 1 cent worth 7.2 million, a testament to how even the smallest mistakes can create unimaginable value. So keep your eyes open, your curiosity sharp, and your passion alive, because the next coin you find could change everything. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating story of the 2005 penny worth millions, make sure to stay connected with us for more incredible tales from the world of numismatics, where history, mystery, and value all come together in the palm of your hand. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another journey into the stories behind the coins. Last, we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, the tale of how a simple 1987 1 cent coin, a penny that most people would have ignored or spent without a second thought, has become the subject of awe, intrigue, and staggering value, with some examples rumored to be worth as much as $29 million because of their errors, mistakes, and the extraordinary circumstances of their creation, preservation, and discovery. And as we go deeper into this story, you'll see why collectors, historians, and numismatists consider era coins from this year to be among the most fascinating and desirable treasures in American coinage, because when it comes to coins like the 1987 penny, value is not just determined by how old it is or how shiny it looks, but by the rare, unusual, and often accidental quirks that slip through the minting process. Quirks that turn a 1-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar artifact. So let us explore why the 1987 penny has captivated so many, what kinds of mistakes it carries, how those mistakes happened, and why those mistakes combined with rarity, provenance, and market demand can elevate a humble copper-plated zinc coin to values unimaginable to the average person who might still think of it as just pocket change. Because the story begins with the fact that in 1982 the United States Mint transitioned from producing pennies that were mostly copper to producing pennies primarily made of zinc with just a thin copper plating, and by 1987 these copper-plated zinc cents were in full production, struck by the billions at the Philadelphia and Denver mints. And yet among those billions there exists a tiny fraction that came out wrong, with errors that not only make them different from the rest but make them immensely valuable. And one of the first categories of mistakes that can make a 1987 penny worth millions is what collectors call double die errors, where the coin's design elements appear doubled, and on certain 1987 pennies you might find doubling on the date, the word liberty, or the phrase "In God We Trust," and such doubling is not just a minor smudge but a clear and visible doubling caused during the hubbing process of die creation. And while many double die coins are minor and not worth much, the rare strong double die examples of 1987 can skyrocket in value because they combine clarity with rarity, with collectors willing to pay extraordinary sums to secure them. And then we must also consider off-center strikes, where the coin was not properly aligned in the striking press, resulting in part of the design being missing or shifted, and for common dates such an error might be worth a few $100s, but when it occurs on a 1987 cent in dramatic fashion with a large portion of the design missing yet the date still intact, it becomes a numismatic gem, because date visibility is key to value. And collectors crave error coins that clearly display the year of issue, and the more dramatic the misalignment the higher the price, with extreme examples fetching astronomical sums at auctions. And then there are broad strike errors, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread out wider and thinner than normal, which on a 1987 penny gives it a striking appearance that collectors find irresistible, especially if the design is complete and the condition is mint state. And such broad strikes are not only visually dramatic but also rare when preserved, as most would have been discarded or spent unnoticed. And then there are wrong planchet errors, some of the most valuable mistakes in all of coinage. And for the 1987 penny this means a coin struck on a planchet intended for a dime, a foreign coin, or some other denomination, and these are exceedingly rare, because planchet mixing was not common. Yet when it did happen it created a coin that by all means should not exist, and those wrong planchet 1987 cents have been known to fetch 6 and 7 figures easily, especially if authenticated by a top grading service. And the possibility that a 1987 penny might have been struck on a copper planchet left over from 1982 adds yet another layer of mystery and potential fortune, because such transitional errors are among the most sought after of all, combining history, rarity, and error significance in a single coin. And let us not forget die cracks and die breaks, where the minting dies used to strike coins develop fractures and those fractures transfer raised lines or cuts onto the coin surface. And while small die cracks are common, large dramatic cuts that obscure part of the design are rare and prized, and when they appear on a 1987 penny in prominent places such as across Lincoln's head, on the lettering, or near the memorial reverse, they become conversation pieces worth thousands or even millions depending on size, clarity, and demand. And then there are repunched mint marks, where the mint mark was hand punched more than once into the die and left traces of doubling or misplacement, which can be found on 1987 pennies and which collectors love to hunt for, because they represent both human error and the changing technology of the mint. And the story gets even deeper when we consider how many of these error coins went unnoticed for years, only to resurface in collections, bank rolls, or estate sales, sparking bidding wars as news spread of their rarity. and it is this combination of hidden treasure and sudden discovery that fuels the legends of coins like the 1987 cent worth millions. Because when you consider the psychological impact of holding in your hand a coin you might have once spent on candy now being worth more than a mansion, you can see why collectors and investors alike are drawn to these stories. And while some may think the idea of a penny being worth $29 million is unbelievable, the truth is that rarity, era type, condition, and collector demand all interact in unpredictable ways, and when wealthy collectors compete to own what may be the only or one of the few known examples of a dramatic 1987 era, the price can soar to levels that seem irrational but are very real in the high-stakes world of numismatics. And the fascination is further amplified by the fact that coins are everyday objects, not luxury goods. Meaning anyone could potentially stumble across one of these treasures in loose change, a coin jar, or inherited collection, and this element of chance, of the possibility that treasure lies hidden in plain sight, makes the 1987 penny and coins like it so compelling. And when we analyze the value trajectory, we see that over the years era coins have consistently grown in desirability, with auction houses reporting record-breaking sales, and experts predicting that the rarest examples could continue to appreciate as new generations of collectors enter the market, because younger collectors often start with pennies, the most accessible denomination, and as they grow their interest they become aware of the legendary eras like the 1987 million-dollar cents, which fuels demand further, and condition plays a critical role too, because while circulated examples may still hold significant value, it is the uncirculated mint state or proof-like errors that achieve the jaw-dropping figures. With pristine examples preserved against all odds commanding the top prices, and authentication is essential, because in a market where millions are at stake, only coins verified by top-tier grading companies like PCGS or NGC are taken seriously by elite buyers, ensuring trust in the rarity and authenticity. And this makes the story of the 1987 penny not just one of accidents at the mint but of human desire, competition, and the intersection of history and chance. Because every era coin tells a story of a moment when machinery faltered, oversight slipped, or a quirk of production created something unintended, and in those unintended mistakes lies immense beauty and value, and the 1987 cent stands as one of the greatest examples, rumored to bring values up to $29 million, and even if most will never reach that, the possibility itself inspires collectors to look more closely, to examine their change, to dream of finding that one coin that turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. And this dream is what keeps the hobby alive, vibrant, and filled with passion, and so the 1987 penny, with its errors, mistakes, and mysteries, remains a shining symbol of how a tiny piece of metal can carry immense historical, cultural, and financial weight. And as we conclude this exploration, I encourage you to always keep an eye on your coins, because you never know when a penny in your pocket might hold a fortune. And if you enjoyed learning about the fascinating story of the 1987 penny and its incredible potential value, make sure to like this video, share it with fellow enthusiasts, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the hidden treasures of the coin collecting world, because together we'll continue uncovering the incredible stories of how ordinary coins become extraordinary riches.